Hey all, just a heads up, health and safety warning, just to look after yourselves while you are watching our show today, because we may be discussing things that may be upsetting for some. Things that may be covered will potentially be child abuse, domestic abuse, and any other type of abuse that some of the children and families that we have worked with have experienced. So just look after yourself. If you need to step away, please do, but come back and join us for a cup of tea. And we also just have to overgo the cultural thing as well, because in some cultures, children should be seen and not heard. And a lot of parents will say, my child would never say that. My child doesn't think that. My child's having a wonderful time. These times, the child is not saying those things. Okay.
And these things, just help with opening up those conversations, getting parents to understand their children a little bit, getting children's voices heard. And that's the number one thing, I think, in your kind of social work assessments and working with children and families, that child's voice needs to be heard, because often children's voices aren't heard.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Tea with the Social Workers. I'm Rita and I got my girl
Paris.
Nice to see you here. And we're really, really excited because this is our final episode of the series. We done it, girl. We made it.
We done it. We are here, episode 6.
Thank you for sticking with us in our introductory series where we were discussing all things social work, spilling the tea, letting you know what's going on out here in these social work streets. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic which is really, really important in terms of our practice and our roles, and actually is important in the decision-making for the families that we work with, because essentially direct work is what tells us what a child's voice is, essentially. And social work is built on a child's voice.
Exactly. So and before you get into it, speaking on that child's voice, we have loads of people in the studio with us today. So we've got my son Rio here coughing. You might hear him making some little sounds. And we've got
Mia and Layla here with us, my wonderful daughters, and they're here to just support me.
Yeah, and the whole team. The whole team's here as well.
We've got a whole team. So big up yourselves, team.
Yeah, so they're all here to understand a bit about direct work. I feel like everyone should know a little bit about direct work. I've had family members come to me and be like, look, like, how can I support my child with doing this? Like, is there anything you can give me? And of course, to the average person, it's not going to be called direct work, but the
strategies.
Yeah, it's work that we would do with children. So I guess, should I give a little...
Yeah, let us know. Break it down. What is direct work? Okay. And why is it important to us?
Okay, so direct work is the work that we do with children to understand their wishes, their wants, their feelings, and just to hear their voices. So we talk about these kind of social work assessments. We talk about statutory intervention. We talk about, Section 47s and all of this. And in the midst of all of that, there are children who need to have their voices heard so we can hear what's going on in their lives and how they view their lives and what's going on. So we use direct work tools to hear from them. I guess with adults, it's easy to kind of have a conversation. You can use certain tools, but just use your kind of communication tactics. But with children, they need that little bit extra. You want to make it fun. You want to make it engaging.
And also you want to remember what they said.
Yeah, that too. Because it can, as conversations just happen, it goes on and they're drawing and stuff. But actually at the end of it, you're left with sometimes a piece of work that's physical. Sometimes you're just left with the memory. But of course, we're always taking notes and so on while it's happening. Pardon Rio if we just heard him break some wind there, bless him. But yes, I feel like that's a good understanding of what direct work is.
Yeah, like I think that's a wicked definition, because honestly, for me, in my first year of employment as a social worker, go and do direct work. What are you talking? Like, what do you want me to... honestly, it was so frustrating because you haven't given me any tools to work with. And I remember when we did finally get tools to work with, I was 2 years into the role and it was one little bag of tools that had to be shared by, was it like 2 or 3 teams?
2 or 3 teams, yeah. And there's about 8 people in each team, yeah. And there's a lot of children that need to be seen. And I guess on that as well, what annoyed me, I think, when we first started social work was your shadowing. And direct work is so important in hearing the voice of the child. But yet you'd go in as like either a student or a newly qualified on that shadowing visit with a social worker. And they're like, you do the direct work with the child? Like, the social workers never wanted to do the direct work.
To those people that is doing that, okay?
Like they just never wanted to do the work. And I didn't really understand it. And I think direct work was one of my favorite things to do. Like literally getting down on the floor with the child, giving them loads of activities to do. And they love it. Like they love that little bit of attention that they get where it's one-on-one. And, you know, direct work should generally be one-on-one, although you can do it in group with some children who are similar ages. It kind of works however works best for the children, I'd say. But you get down on the floor, you get your colouring pens out, you get your notebook out, and you know you can do some activities.
So we've got some of our direct work tools that we've built over the years that we're going to show you a little bit later on in the show. Before we get to that, I just want to just cover some of the barriers and some of the stuff I don't like.
Okay, yeah.
So where should we go first? Barriers or some of the stuff we don't like?
Let's go with the barriers.
Okay, because for me, one of the barriers I've experienced in direct work is time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like spending time with the children that I'm working with. I like giving them... You see how I am even just in my normal life? Like when I'm with my friends, my phone is off and upside down because I don't want to be distracted. I want you to know that I'm giving you my whole 100% effort, my time, my energy. And sometimes, depending on the family, depending on the parent, or depending on just how many people are on your caseload, you might not be able to give the amount of time that you want to give. Because, i.e., you can't come to my house until 6:30, but you need to leave at 7.
Yeah.
I need to speak to mum. I need to speak to dad. I need to speak to sibling 1, 2, and 3 within that time.
Have you not had families of 8?
No.
There's families of 8, and your assessment needs to include the voice of every single one of those children, whether they are 2 or whether they are 17 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it can be extremely difficult. Or sometimes, like, the barrier is direct work, like you said, should be done one-on-one with that child. It's an opportunity to give that child an opportunity to be seen alone.
Yeah.
And to be spoken to alone, and to not have that pressure of, I'm going to get in trouble. Or feel like I'm going to get someone else in trouble. And I think sometimes the barrier for me is when people don't trust the social worker or don't trust the role. And you know what? Hands up, fair to anyone who does feel that way. You're being protective towards your child and you might be anxious or worried. But actually, the purpose of that exercise is to really get the best out of your child, like to find out what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they would like. And a lot of the time, that alone time can really give them that opportunity to just think about it.
Yeah.
More time they haven't been asked before. What do you want? What would you like?
Especially in like where there's big sibling groups, you know, there's always a child who feels a little bit silenced, or, you know, everyone's into the baby that's here, or, you know, the older one, everyone's taking care of them, or that one plays sports and mum and dad always watch their sports stuff, and that middle child isn't always heard. So I feel like it's just that good time where you can get that one-on-one time, be seen, be heard, have your thoughts, feelings, be expressive, and sometimes even tell those secrets that you may have been told to hold, or that you've just been holding that you felt like you couldn't share. And actually you've got that moment to just be like, this is what's happening. This is how I feel. I love a bit of direct work.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And that's whether I'm working with young people who are, you know, sort of toddler age, to working with young people who are doing up nails done, hair did, you know, trying to live my best life. I'm open to it all, because it really just gives me a chance to build those relationships. Before we go into like what we are a fan of, one of the things that I'm definitely not a fan of is worksheets. I'm not a fan of worksheets. I'm not a fan of pre-printed worksheets. I just think they're a bit lazy.
Yeah.
And for young people who have been maybe in the sort of care system, or who have been known to services for a while, they would have seen those worksheets before already. Yeah. One of the ones I hate the most is the free houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to know more about it, you can Google it, honestly, because I'm not gonna give it time.
Yeah, well, it does just kind of cover like your house of worries, your house of dreams, and your house of... I can't even remember the third one because I don't use it, and I wasn't a fan of it either. And I think one of the local authorities that we worked in as well were very much like, we don't want to see the free houses. Like, it's been done. We've seen it. We've heard it. And I think Free Wishes was like that a little bit as well. Do you remember Free Wishes? If you had 3 wishes, what would it be? You know, sometimes it works great and the child will be like, oh, like, you know, really superficial things. But how can you get an in-depth conversation if you're just asking very kind of superficial?
How are you going to write an assessment about a family and include the wishes, the feelings of a child, and all you've asked them is that question. Like, get out of here.
It is very lazy. And as much as we talk about time constraints, it doesn't mean you should be lazy with what you're doing. And a worksheet, yeah, like you said, it's not great. But your best direct work tool before we get anything out is yourself. So if you haven't got those resources available, it's yourself. It's the communication skills that we learn and that they chimed on about at uni. Like, this is the one time where you can be like, uni taught me something great and I can use it. It's your communication skills and how you communicate, how you get down on that floor to that child's level, and whether it be lie down or roll down, whatever it be with them, and just get silly, get messy, do an activity that they want to do. Ask them some questions about their life about their life. And I always used to get them to ask me questions.
Yeah.
So it didn't make them feel like
you're there to do an interrogation.
Like, well, you can ask me. And I actually just realized I left one of my direct work tools that was like my favorite thing for doing because I caught so much. But I'll talk about it when we get into it properly. But
use it to introduce us into our stuff.
It was a chatterbox. You remember the chatterbox?
Oh yeah.
Maybe I could get one of your girls to do one if they remember how to do it.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
And I would, you'd write little things in there. So you'd have the colours and they'd pick a colour and you do your BLUE. Then I think you do the numbers. And then it would be like, so actually I would have 3 wishes in there.
That works.
Yeah. So one of them would be like, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? Another one would be like, tell me 3 things that you like about your sister or your sibling or your friend, or describe your home in 3 words. Little things like that.
So would you pass it back and forth between you? Oh, so I like that.
I'd say you go first and do it on me so that they can kind of get comfortable. Then I'd answer and be like, oh, well, my 3 wishes are, I'd have a big house and whatever my 3 wishes were that change by the day. And then, we do it on each other. And that was one of the things that I would do, as well as other tools. I'd always do multiple tools because I found that the more time you spend, as we know, the more time you spend, the more things you do, you build that rapport with that child, then things just get a lot more comfortable. So my little chatterbox, that was one of my favorite ones.
I've never actually used a chatterbox, but I like the way you've taken elements of the worksheets and made them practical and actually useful. So I'm here for that. I can also see you've got some other things going on over there. What's that?
Yes. So I've got this. This is like a feelings card. So it's, how are you feeling? So I would use this with younger children. So generally not really teenagers. With teenagers, I'd more just have a conversation with them because they like to feel, grown up, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do all of that stuff. Like, I'm not a child, I'm
a big man,
Trust me. So I'm like, all right, no, let's just have a conversation and we'll talk about things. But with these, I would use with a child and I'd kind of get them out and I'd lay them, so they've got, I'll hold it up so the camera can zoom in maybe. I would lay them out and I'd put them upside down and lay them out like, what was that game? Is it Go Fish? I don't even know. But you'd lay them down.
Look at me doing the fan like I know what you're talking about. I was going to say blackjack.
Not the gambling. We don't support gambling.
We do not. We do not. It's the only game I know, and Snap.
I think it might have been Go Fish, but I can't remember. But what I would do is I'd lay them out and then we'd both play. And I'd say, pick a card, any card. And then they'd pick a card up and like this one says shy. So I'd say, tell me a time when you felt shy. And then the child would be like, I felt shy on my first day of school. And then I'd be like, well, why did you feel shy? And they'd be like, because it was a new school and this is my 5th school that I've been to because we've moved around a lot or whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? But it's not just, tell me a time you were shy. Okay, nice. From what they say, you follow up, that you build that conversation. And these, I feel like opened Pandora's box to a lot of things. In terms of feelings, thoughts, worries. Tell me a time you felt worried. What does a worried face look like? Can you give me a worried face? Who do you know that feels angry a lot of the time? So then they might be like, my daddy gets angry. Oh, well, when does daddy get angry? Daddy gets angry when mummy leaves the fridge open, or daddy gets angry when mummy comes home late, or whatever it may be. But it's just having those nice kind of open conversations where you're not like, putting the child on, I don't know, making them feel like, is it persecutory? You're not like, tell me about your life and what happens in it. It just feels really natural flowing and they can be really open and honest about it and think of a time, because sometimes, like you said, they don't even realize when they felt worried. So they might be like, Oh, yeah, I remember. I was worried that time when, we got home and we couldn't get in the house and, all our stuff was outside, whatever it might be for them. So, yeah, they're the feelings cards. So I feel like anyone kind of training in social work, get them. Your local authority or your NHS trust, wherever you're working, may not provide them, but, you can find them anywhere online and use them. Like, they really, really do work and they're really helpful for hearing.
Yeah, jumping on the back of your feelings cards. So in my student days, I couldn't afford the cards. So like my newly qualified years. Oh, hey, Rio. So what I would do is I actually just made printouts and got them laminated by one of my friends in the other departments who had a laminating machine.
Lovely.
And I would use them in a similar way to yourself. And actually what you'll find with a lot of young people, with a lot of children, is some of them don't know how to identify their emotions. And some of them don't know how to attach an emotion to a word. So I find these really, really useful, not just for young people, but sometimes also for the adults who live in the home with them. So it's, especially maybe where English is a second language in the home. What, was that another fart?
I can just hear Rio passing wind. I'm sorry. So embarrassing.
So with these particular cards, I would find them useful using it to work with alongside parents as well. If you can't buy them, you could always make them yourself. And before I'd actually thought of this idea to print them out, what I would just do is I'd had plain paper in my bag.
Okay, yeah.
I'd got plain paper, which I'd taken from the printer machine.
Yeah.
Thanks, job. And I would just take some felt tip pens with me and I would actually ask them to draw for me. What does a sad face look like? What does a happy face look like? What does a worried face look like? And then we would then use those cards between us. Those would become live cards.
Okay, nice.
And then they would get to keep them at the end. So we've sort of evolved. We've glowed up in terms of the cards. But yeah, definitely something to use. Anything else that you want to show us? Or should I?
Yeah, no, you go in with yours. Let's see. Because Rita always talks about this toolbox. I feel like on most of the episodes, you're like, social work toolbox that you don't get given when you start in social work. This is your social work toolbox that you kind of built, I suppose, isn't it?
I've built a toolbox. One of the ones that I really, really like is I like this. Just a little notebook. And you can get these in the pound shop. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on Shein. You can get them on any of those sorts of websites. But it's just basically a little notebook. And what I would do is I would gift it to the young person that I'm working with and I would teach them to journal. So we would start by, just writing, how do you feel today? And I would use the rose, bud and thorn method. So tell me something. The rose stands for tell me something nice that happened today. The bud, something that you're looking forward to. And the thorn, something that you're not quite happy about. And that just gets them into the mode of journaling. And quite a few of the young people that I've introduced this to, when I've bumped into them at a later date, they have said that they've continued with their journaling.
Yeah, no, journaling's brilliant. I feel like as adults, a lot of us have picked up journaling in the last few years. And I think we could have really benefited from things like journaling as a young person and just being able to express your feelings. And know that actually, people always say write a diary, but I feel like a diary's been commercialized. I feel like on films and everything. So there's an expectation of what a diary should
look
be.
Like.
Should be like and look like. But I think a little bit of journaling, thoughts and feelings, and just writing that down, I think is really good.
So that's one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites is the Making Memories cards.
Nice.
So this is where maybe families are a little bit time poor and they struggle to spend time together as a family. So maybe the conversation might be when you're asking the child, oh, how do you spend time together? Oh, we watch TV. What else do you do? Nothing. This is just a box of cards that actually allows families to pick out a memory that they are going to create together.
Okay.
So it has different suggestions in there. Go to an arcade together and try to win your loved one a cuddly toy.
Oh, that's nice.
Secretly clean or tidy your loved one's home or workspace.
Get the kids cleaning.
And everyone in the family would get to pick a card and we would agree my next visit. And by the time I come back, you would have had to complete that task.
That's really nice.
So yeah, that would show me so much more than just this task. It will show me the sort of like motivation for wanting to do it. If it's not done, what's the reason behind that? Is there support that's required?
Maybe I can ask you, like, you've got your toolbox there. Maybe I could ask you, okay, so if you had like a child who was struggling to regulate their emotions or speak to their family about things that are going on for them, what kind of stuff in your toolbox would you do with that child?
It really depends on the age, to be fair. Like with the younger children, we can play around more with things like this. So I would probably start with, this is my thingy of buttons. I've just put it in the IKEA bag to get it here. But usually it's in a nice little trinket box. And there's different types of buttons in here. So I'm just different types. Not that I've not bought them specially, but you can if you want. I know that they do offer them online, but these are just buttons that I've lost over the years from different types of clothing. Or you can just sort of go into a thrift shop, like a charity shop, get something you don't want that doesn't have buttons and cut them off if you want to build yours. I would use these buttons alongside my genogram, and I would get them to start exploring their emotions that way with a younger child. I would actually have had a genogram drawn out already with that young person or the family. And a genogram, like you're going to see just shortly, is a family tree. But with that family tree, it can be quite simplistic and it's just represented by squares and circles. So with the buttons, because they look different, like this one is this sort of like pearly white looking one. This one is, red and has like threads on it. So this one has like, this sort of checkered design on it. They represent different things. They come in different sizes. And what I would be asking a young person to do is to pick a button that represents the person on that genogram. And I would then be asking them what those people present like. And it could be using words, or it could be, can you show me?
Do you want to do one on me?
I'll do one on you.
Yeah. So should I pick a button or do you want to pick a button?
So I would like you to pick a button that represents Laura.
Laura's our production
manager. Bop, bop, bop.
I'm looking for something bright and I'm looking for something like colourful. I'm going to go for this one.
Okay. So why have you picked this particular button to represent Laura?
I've picked this one to represent Laura. I feel like because it's bold, it's bright, it's colourful. And that reminds me of Laura. I feel like she's got great energy and I feel like this presents great energy. It's kind of shiny.
Okay.
It's pretty and it's fun.
And what emotion would you describe Laura as? Like, what is she happy? Is she generally sad? Like the times that you've spent with her, what would you describe her as?
Happy, cheery, like really vibrant, good energy.
Yeah. And the times that you have been with Laura, when you've walked away from her, what feeling do you remember feeling?
Happy. Like, I feel like a little snug, like warm and fuzzy.
Okay.
Warm and fuzzy, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an example of how I would use this button to understand the emotions that you feel around Laura. However, if you had maybe used negative emotions to describe how she makes you feel, then that might open up a bigger conversation as to understanding you. Because it could be, I've chosen this button because it reminds me of fear. Every time I'm around Laura, the emotion that she shows is anger or frustration. I walk away from Laura feeling anxious and worried. And actually, I get worried all the time now because I have to see her more often.
Right.
That would give me an understanding as to how you currently feel based on that person.
Yes.
So if I've opened that out in a genogram, there would be various buttons across, and I would be able to ask how the different relationships in your life impact you and create the emotions that you currently have.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of a systemic way of working. Systemic is just a way of understanding relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah. But with an older child, I tend to start here. I'm a music girl.
Yeah.
And I think that music speaks to a lot of people. So I'm just showing you my headphones here just to give the connotation of music. But sometimes I would have my speaker with me. Or sometimes we would play it on, whatever device that they have. And I'll just ask them, show me your best track.
Yeah.
What music are you listening to at the moment? Tell me why you like it.
Yeah.
Why do you like those lyrics? What do they speak to you? And sometimes my young people would get into the mode of using songs to let me know how they're feeling.
Yeah.
So then they'll start saying, oh, Rita, listen to this song. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's nice.
It depends on the person, really.
Yeah, because I feel like with music, with me, what I used to find, like, say for like the young teenage boys, I just used to have to try and keep up to date with like the drill music.
Yeah.
Because all I needed to do was kind of show that I understand the music and what's kind of out there, and just, name drop a few little rappers or whatever. And that just made things feel a bit more, I could see them kind of shoulders come down, relax. And they're looking at me like, oh, miss, you know that?
Yeah.
you know K-Trap. I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yes, I do.
I'm still young, I know what goes down in the DMs.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I like the way how you use the music as well, though. It shows the kind of different methods and ways that you can relate to a child through music.
Yeah, music is a big one for me. One of the other things that I do also is just use Post-it notes. When people are struggling to understand their emotions, I think it's easier to start on what they feel about themselves. So I like to use Post-it notes to introduce the introduction of labels.
Okay.
So I might ask a young person, what labels are you carrying right now that you don't like? Use the green one. So they might write down rude and stick it on themselves. They might write down, I don't like the label of being called lazy. One young person said she didn't like being called loud. And I would ask them, do you like those labels? No. All right, what labels would you like to have? And then they would replace them. So yeah, it's just like a really visual way of playing around with labels. And then it's, why don't you like that label? What is it about when someone calls you lazy that you don't like?
And who calls you these names? Yeah.
So it's easier to then start at a different point as opposed to tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just so much stuff here. I don't even know. This was actually for the parents. Date night decider.
Oh.
Yeah. So this for parents again, where there was a little bit of time poorness in their life, and they just couldn't really find time to spend time together. So talking about support with the family, or doing things like a family group conference where you call the family together to help you to see who can support you. I would get parents to pick out a card from here, and it gives little date night suggestions, and they would have to do one.
That's really nice.
We would.
And I tell you why I like that, because I feel like I haven't looked in the box. I don't know what type of things are in there, but I feel like sex is always sometimes quite a difficult conversation to have with people. And I remember like having consultations with like our domestic violence lead and stuff like that. And she would always say, you need to understand the sex life between a couple, especially where there's concerns of domestic violence. And I feel like things like that, again, I'm not entirely sure what's in there, but stuff like that can probably open up conversations around sex, which can be quite difficult, can be quite intrusive. Like people are probably watching this being like, what do you mean a social worker's coming in the house talking to me about sex? But actually you can find out a lot about a person's relationship. You can find out a lot about a person. Yeah, a person, their relationship.
Yeah, and that's why I use these cards as well. These cards are from the And.
Okay.
They are actually aimed at couples, friends. You can use it. We can use it if we wanted to use it, just between you and I. I've used it in my previous relationships as well in terms of understanding. This one's called African Loving. So these are conversation cards that discuss all areas of relationship. So sex, love, friendship, aspirations, goals. So don't make your families cold pick these cards. Like I would have to go through each set of cards and I would select the cards that I feel would be relevant to a specific family. So I would tailor the cards that I'm taking with me. And yeah, they really are what they say they are. They're conversation starters. They ask, like this one, how would you define your relationship? And that's a question that was put.
Okay.
When was the last time I cried and why? So they're just conversations that you could use to sort of open up discussions for the family, really.
Yeah.
This one is a Coco magazine. Big up the Coco magazine.
I know
peeps
Coco,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually a Coco boy magazine. I've got Coco girl magazines as well, but I've given them all out now. But this, I love to use this magazine. And the reason that I use this magazine is because it's specifically aimed at brown-skinned girls and boys.
Yeah.
And I really like it because we don't have many of these types of magazines out there for us. And I tend to take this along when I have families where there is a little bit of development that can be done around identity.
Mm-hmm.
So I've used it in fostering, for example, where maybe a brown-skinned girl or boy is being fostered by someone from a different ethnicity.
Yeah.
And it can just help the foster parent and that young person. Yes, and it's not like it's got anything that another child of a different ethnicity wouldn't like, but it's just...
It's about that representation.
It's about that representation, yeah. So I would gift it to that young person. It's not something I would take away with me, but I liked that it had Coco boys as well.
Yeah, I didn't actually know there was Coco boys.
Yeah,
I only know
Coco
the girls.
boys, girl.
Yeah, my niece reads.
So get into that. But generally, what is always in my bag is this. Get yourself one of these. Just a little folder. You can get them in the pound shop. And inside here is there would be my feelings cards. I would have these pens in there that go with my plain paper. I've got some child-friendly scissors. I don't know where I got them from, but they're here. Big up the girls. You probably bought them. And then I would also have just these. They're Young Minds little booklets. You can get different booklets from different places. Sometimes you'll see them in like the GP. Sometimes you'll see them in like the reception area of whatever waiting area. And depending on the young person and what they want to talk about, sometimes I might just say, do you want to consider any one of these? It might not even be what the issue is.
Yeah.
But sometimes they like talking about stuff that is not necessarily what they think you're there to talk about.
Yeah. Or sometimes they're not talking about themselves. It might be a friend.
Yeah.
Like I just saw one of them said self-harm. So that's quite a difficult topic to kind of speak about as a young person. And sometimes young people get into or begin to self-harm because it's a thing that their friend does.
Yeah.
So sometimes they might be like, oh, well, my friend self-harms. Whether or not they're doing it to themselves, I don't know. But it might be a conversation for, oh, yeah, actually, I've got a friend that does that. And it might open up a conversation. So, yeah, I quite like that as well.
So there's different ones, but I don't want to take away from you as well. So I'm just I'm gonna introduce the body maps.
Yes.
And that would nicely take you into what I think you have over there.
Yes.
So the body maps I would actually use when I'm worried about physical abuse or I'm worried about sexual abuse. And it's a very child-friendly way of figuring out what a child understands about their body parts and who has access to those body parts and if any of those body parts have been injured or hurt in some way. So this is a sort of generic female version. This is a sort of generic male version.
Yeah.
But use them as you see fit. But essentially, a child, for example, could mark on here that I have an injury over here. And that's in their armpit.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't typically see if they're in clothing.
Yeah.
A child could mark that they have been inappropriately touched over here.
Yeah.
And that would be a strong indicator to me that something has happened and I may need to respond in a very strong way. So, but I'll let you sort of show us what's over there.
Yeah. So over here, I've got a worksheet that Rita hates, but no, these are okay.
No,
these are really
okay.
good.
I like Passasaurus. It's these ones that I hate, but I'm going to show you those ones at the end.
So I feel like this is quite popular and it works really well with families and children. So this worksheet here is for the child and this one is for the parents. So what essentially it is, it's called Talk Pants Like Pantosaurus. And this is what we would use for to speak about safe touch and also inappropriate touch. And it's more a tool that I would use for where there might be concerns or worries that there's been maybe some type of inappropriate touch or sexual assault or abuse against a child. but there may not be any evidence. So somebody might have put in a referral with raising concerns, but we haven't got any evidence to say that it's happened. So you can use it as preventative, but you can also use it in the unfortunate event that it, that has happened to a child. So with the child version, it's saying let's talk pants. And it's just a smart way for children to understand and remember how to keep themselves safe. So as you can see, that the acronym here is PANTS. And then we've got P stands for private's a private. A, always remember your body belongs to you. N, no means no. T, talk about secrets that upset you. S, speak up, someone can help. And it's meant to be a very child-friendly way to have that conversation with a child. You can pull it up on the internet, on the NSPCC. There's a little video that goes along with it so that it kind of stays in the child's head. And hopefully it's something that they can remember and refer to. I would always say it's not necessarily something you can just do once. You can do it on multiple occasions with a child. You can also give it to a parent to do with their child to keep those kind of conversations open and comfortable. And also to kind of refer back. Remember when we done let's talk pants, how are things going at school or whatever it may be, to kind of open up those difficult conversations. And then there's a parent's guide. And the parent's guide is a lot, it's got a lot more information for the parent as opposed to the child's one. But it just speaks to you about how to have these kind of conversations and how to break down the model with the child and kind of, again, open up those conversations. So this was something that I always used in those, in the context of inappropriate touch, safe touch, along with the body maps that Rita had up. And I guess, it just opens the lines of conversations really comfortably in I want to say fun way, but in a way that's just not like where it's going to be difficult to speak about, because we know in terms of sexual assault and sexual abuse, inappropriate touch, even as adults, we struggle to speak about that. And inappropriate touch can also be, a touch of the shoulder. It doesn't always have to be pants. And that's where the body map, I think, is really great, because an inappropriate touch can be your shoulder. It can be your head. It can be just standing that little bit too close to you.
You're just in my zone.
Exactly. And exploring that personal space a little bit. So that's my kind of, or the Pantosaurus with the NSPCC. You can pull it up on the website. And I definitely think it is just something to do with all children. I don't think it needs, as I've said, it doesn't need to be done with a child who may have experienced some form of abuse. I think it's great to use as a preventative measure, as well as in the instance that there has been abuse has taken place.
I think it's wicked. I think in terms of worksheet, I'm down for this worksheet. But let me show you. This is like a booklet of worksheets, and
it's very bland.
It's just awful. It's just like, if you're gonna be going for the worksheets, take what you can, like, as a positive out of there. And tailor it to the child that you're working with. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be like you have to turn up with all of this stuff. Like when I was starting, I told you I had no money. I was broke, baby. So I was turning up there with my consent form and a pen. And what I was doing initially was just saying to the young people, like, show me your favorite toy. How do I play with it? I remember one of the things was show me I would find them and they're watching TV or something. Oh, what are you watching? Oh, it's my show. Is it your favorite show? Right. Tell me about it. Which character do you like? Why do you like them? Just little things like that. Obviously, when my money started going up, I could be a little bit more flexible in how I play with the young people. But so in terms of adolescence, that sort of elevated and changed to, I might go with a young person to a nail salon. We get our nails done together. One of the young people would say, oh, I'm into boxing. I want to go ice skating. I like this. I like that. And I would make that happen for them.
I think with those kind of dry worksheets that you've brought up, I feel like what I said with the 3 wishes, you can pull them out and play around with them, add them in. Like one of them there said, I don't know, what do you like to do? Like that's just an opener. That's just a part of the conversation. That isn't the conversation. So you can throw that in to build that rapport, but you have to be what's the word? You have to be creative.
This doesn't even deserve to be on the
Dash red sheets. But yeah, you have to be creative in what you do. So you can, use part of those tools, but yeah, be creative. Throw a few things in, make a chatterbox, make the chatterbox with the child.
Yeah.
But if there's specific questions that you want to know, then you follow up with another direct tool. We spoke about time restraints, but it's imperative that you see a child throughout your assessment, throughout the time that you're working with them. So on one day, to warm them up, you do one piece of work with them. On another occasion, you do the second piece of work with them. Like you said, you give them the journal, right, do some journaling. When I come back, we'll have a look at your journal together.
Yeah.
So build that rapport, spend that time, be creative with your resources, be creative with your tool. And as I said, your best tool is yourself. The worksheets can sit there, these can sit there, but if I don't do anything with them, then these are useless.
Yeah.
So yeah, build your toolbox with these things, but work on what you can do and be creative.
One of the things we've forgotten to say, which we always do, a genogram.
Oh, yes. Do you know what? You actually mentioned genogram earlier.
Did I?
But we didn't go into it. But yeah, of course, genograms are brilliant for direct work with adults and children. And I guess, should we give a quick explanation as to what a genogram is? So I guess essentially a genogram is a family tree.
Yep.
It's a family tree where you can draw out your family tree, and there's different shapes that represent individuals, a bit like how you might use your buttons, but different shapes represent. So is it a school?
A square is a man.
Yeah. A circle is a woman. And with that, you kind of draw your family tree out. And with that, you can
get so much.
You can get so much, and you can see family patterns. That was the main thing. I remember. So one, you could be like, okay, so this is your mum. Tell me some stuff about your mum, or what do you like about mum? What do you dislike about mum? What do you like about your sister? You might see that, there's a half sister that lives, in Shropshire or something like that you weren't even aware of was in the family tree. Because actually, if we're here for an assessment with this family, we might also need to be doing an assessment with that half sister if there's contact potentially and there's concerns about a parent who's linked to that child. So the family tree can bring out things that are hereditary in families when that may be like mental illness. So for instance, schizophrenia, bipolar, those things can be hereditary. So actually with a genogram, you can see, actually my nan, she suffered with schizophrenia, and so did my aunt. Yeah. My mum didn't, but actually I've got a diagnosis of schizophrenia. So you can see family traits and histories and things like alcoholism as well, and how that kind of, my granddad was an alcoholic, my dad was an alcoholic. I feel like I'm struggling right now with alcohol.
And you can pick out the anomalies as well. So like with a cultural genogram, it highlights people that's outside of that bloodline.
Yeah.
Because you can include an auntie, you can include mum's bestie, you could include the neighbour down the road who I go and, wait there on a Wednesday because mum gets home late. Do you know what I mean? And it really just helps you to open up that network for that family and see some relationships that you wouldn't see on the traditional frameworks. Yeah. And that's why I say throw them trashy worksheets in the trash where they belong.
Yeah, and draw your genogram.
Draw your genograms. Get your paper. Get your paper. Well, Paris's one is quite nicely like, this was Paris's one. She's even put like a little tags on them. But yeah, just get yourself a folder and build yourself a toolkit that you're comfortable using. Yeah. This is what I'm comfortable using because I can speak to it. Paris has her toolkit that she's comfortable using because she can speak to it. Get yourself a toolkit that you can speak to. Personalize it. So when you pull something out that bag, you're confident. You know what you're about to say to that family. You know what you're about to say to that child. Yeah. And, Bob's your uncle.
I 100% agree. And I think if you're confident in the kind of direct work that you're doing with the family and the children, you're going to hear what it is that you kind of want to hear. You're going to get those answers that you want to hear. And I'm not saying that needs to be, my mum's abusing me. You're just, when I'm saying you're going to hear what you want to hear, you might hear that actually, they're a great family. Yeah. And, there's just issues that mum has right now because she's under pressure. And that's why she's not able to meet these needs of her children. And not necessarily, my mum beats me and hurts me and so on and so forth.
You will also have the confidence to respond to a parent who's telling you, how did you write these things in the assessment about my child when you were only here for so-and-so time? You will be able to confidently rebut that to say, actually, I spent time with your young person and this is how I got to this analysis of my time with that child. You'll be able to defend your decision making. So,
and the main thing is letting that She,
Done with you.
them worksheets.
Done
And the
with
main
you.
thing is the child can be heard. And I think in some families, the parents don't always hear
Yeah.
what the children are saying, or they're like, my child would never say that. And you're like, well, actually, no,
Yeah, so
they have.
Yeah, and we also just have to overgo the cultural thing as well, because in some cultures, children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of parents will say, my child would never say that. My child doesn't think that. My child's having a wonderful time. These times, the child is not saying those things. Okay.
Exactly. And these things, just help with opening up those conversations, getting parents to understand their children a little bit, getting children's voices heard. And that's the number one thing, I think, in your kind of social work assessments and working with children and families, that child's voice needs to be heard, because often children's voices aren't heard.
We're going to wrap it up here, because if I continue talking, I'm going to cuss these worksheets one more time. Thank you for being here with us today. I hope that we opened up your minds into sort of understanding some of the direct work tools that we use. If you want to know more, or if you want us to do another episode sort of opening out some more examples, let us know. Click, subscribe, do all the things that you're told to do on these podcasts. We're here for it. We want to see you again.
Follow us on Instagram, TWT Social Workers. Follow us on YouTube. No, subscribe to us on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Yep, at Tea with the Social Workers. And that is a wrap for season 1.
Season 1.
Woo! Yay! The information presented in this podcast is for general information purposes only. In line with the Data Protection Act 2018, there will be no mention of any child, family, or local authority. While our hosts are qualified social workers registered with Social Work England, the content of this podcast does not establish a social worker to client relationship. For any specific questions or concerns about your situation, we encourage you to consult with your local authority for guidance specific to your situation. Thank you.